So today we're speedrunning through Undertale and doing the True Pacifist route. Now this speedrun starts as soon as we confirm our name, and right away we get transported to a pile of flowers with no explanation of where we are. After that though, we meet Flowey. Flowey wants to be helpful and teaches about friendliness pellets, so we touch them as soon as possible and lose all of our health. Thankfully though, right as we're about to die, Goat Mom Toriel comes in to save us. Toriel lives in the ruins that we dropped into and takes care of any child that gets put here. She's an awesome character, so we follow her as she instructs. After this, we need to do a few puzzles to go through the ruins. Now Toriel will complete a couple of them for us and tasks us to do the ones that she deems fit. These include pressing some clearly marked buttons and running away from a practice dummy that she wanted us to talk to. Honestly, not too much to say about this part until she decides to test our courage by running away. Then we kinda just run after her and she's behind a pillar. Anyways, she leaves us alone and tells us to stay there, but I don't have time for that, so we finally start our actual journey. But pretty much for this part, we just need to make it through the rest of the ruins alone and do some pretty easy puzzles. There's one where we have to move a rock, one where we have to take the correct path to not fall down, and another rock one, but this time the rock is moody and we actually have to talk to it. All the while, we need to earn 7 gold from fighting enemies. In Undertale, enemies randomly show up and you can choose to fight them or spare them. To spare them, you usually need to do some sort of puzzle involving the act options, but the ones in the ruins aren't hard at all. We can get our gold by sparing 4 different enemies as we go through the various rooms. Then we also get the chance to meet one of the best characters, Napstablook. He's a ghost who's not very confident, so we can defeat him by cheering for him 3 times. This makes him do this amazing party trick, so we then flirt with him and he runs away. Yeah. It's kinda sad. Anyways, we can now go and buy a spider donut with the 7 gold that we got earlier. We're going to be hanging on to this for a while, but it's crucial to get it so we can save time later. Then we need to complete a few more switch puzzles before finally making it back to Toriel. We see the house that she wants us to stay in forever and gives us our own room and some pie, which will also be very useful much later in the speedrun. But after that, it's time to leave. We can listen to Toriel about some snail facts and then ask her how to leave the ruins. This causes her to run away and go downstairs. She'll warn us a few times about the dangers of leaving, but I don't listen to anyone and choose to ignore it. Now it's time to fight Goat Mom. This fight has a really cool strategy. We want to constantly spam Toriel and she slowly starts to accept that we want to leave. But every time we spare her, we can get a few different attacks. The one we want is this hand attack, since if we get hit by the hand, it ends immediately. The more hands we get, the faster we can go. After we finally reach 2 HP, Toriel stops attacking us completely and eventually decides to give up. We'll miss you, Goat Mom. And after a bit more walking, we meet Flowey again, who tries to provoke us, but I don't know how to read that fast, so we ignore whatever he says and make it out of the ruins. Now immediately after leaving the ruins and doing a bit of walking, we meet Sans. He's a pretty cool dude. He tells us that his brother Papyrus really wants to meet a human so he can capture them and join the Royal Guard. But he's also nothing to really worry about, so Sans asks us to humor him. We watch them have a conversation about this behind a conveniently shaped lamp, and after a few puns from Sans, we can move on. Here's where we get to a save point and a chance to go into an inventory box. Now we want to take the tough glove and replace our stick with it. Obviously we won't be using the new weapon since it's a pacifist run, but we want the stick in our inventory. We then get some more great dialogue about how Papyrus will catch us and move to the right until we meet Doggo. Here we use our stick and it automatically completes the requirement for sparing him. And yes, this works for every dog enemy in the game. The stick is actually overpowered. But after sparing him, we get to our next puzzle with Sans and Papyrus. Now this one is tricky. Papyrus set up a trap where if we walk in the wrong places, we get electrocuted by the ball in his hand. But he forgot to give the ball to us, so he hands it over and kinda just reveals the path. I love him so much. And then the next puzzle is a crossword that we can kinda ignore. I promise the puzzles will get harder eventually. Now the next one is where we need to find a button that makes some spikes go away, but of course since we're speedrunning, we know exactly where the button is already, so it isn't too bad, and we can move on to our next fight against Dogami and Dogoressa. Yeah, we literally just use the stick again. Anyways, after completing 2 more puzzles, one that's really simple and the other one that you can complete by just pressing a switch in this tree, we make it onto this area. Here Papyrus sets up a puzzle that has way too many directions, so we tell him we don't understand it 2 times in a row, and he just leaves the instructions on the ground for us to take a look at. This is a great scene. Then we have another one of these X puzzles before making it to our next fight against Greater Dog. I'm pretty sure you already know what we need to do. This finally leads us into the last puzzle of this area. Here Papyrus set up whatever this is, but decides against using it since it would be too tough. What a bro. And at this point we enter Snowden and go into the shop where we want to buy the manly bandana for a strap much later in the run and a bicycle as safety food. Then it's finally time for for our next boss fight against Papyrus. But we defeat Papyrus in a secret way instead of fighting him normally. If we intentionally let Papyrus hit us until we reach 1 HP, instead of killing us, he captures us and puts us in his garage. Then if we do this 3 times, he gives us the option to just not fight him at all and leaves us alone. This is hilariously faster than the normal method, and I just love this game so much for that. But after getting almost killed by Papyrus 3 times, we decide to date him. We get this little mini game where you get to show how much you love Papyrus by wearing a gross bandage and refusing to eat his spaghetti so he can eat it instead. Papyrus quickly realizes how in love with him we are, but friend zones us. And no matter how many speedruns of this game I do, that never gets easier. But hey, look, time for the next area. Now this area starts with a little section where we can go inside this waterfall and find an old tutu. Again, it's something that will be useful later. Then we get to meet Undyne and Monster Kid. We get introduced to Undyne by Papyrus explaining that he couldn't capture us. Then we move a bit forward and she almost stabs us, but thinks that us moving was nothing. Then we find out that Monster Kid, this awesome yellow dude, was also in there with us. He's a huge fan of Undyne and wants to meet her. After this, we need to complete some simple lily pad puzzles to progress. Papyrus also calls us and asks us what we're wearing because Undyne wants to know and he wants to protect us. There's a joke that regardless of if we lie or tell the truth, Papyrus will still tell her the real answer, because if we tell the truth, he's sure that we were lying and tells Undyne what we said, and if we lie, he's sure that we weren't lying, so he lies, which ends up being the truth. Yeah, that's confusing even trying to explain it. Then Undyne starts chasing after us and throwing some spears. Here, it's really important to dodge them, because if we don't, we need to do this extra dodging thing, and it loses a few seconds. Then after this, we make it to some more weeds, and Undyne grabs Monster Kid by the eye. She figures that we lost her and can move on. Then we have some more general walking until we find Monster Kid in the rain. He decides to tag along with us while telling us more about his Undyne obsession. We also get to use a small trick during this room where if you hold both up and down at the same time, you move at twice the speed, which is a really nice and easy time save. Finally, Monster Kid helps us up a cliff, and it's time for another Undyne encounter. This time, she spawns her spears from the ground to attack us. Thankfully, we can manipulate these spears by moving in a certain direction and then switching that direction when they do their warning. This even works when you hold a direction but are stopped by a wall, so it's a really easy attack to dodge. This finally leads us to a dead end though, and Undyne destroys this bridge. We get a bit of lore at this point, but who cares, I'm trying to speedrun, and now we're at the dump. I feel right at home here. But unfortunately, we need to leave until we get stopped by this character, Mad Dummy. Now, Mad Dummy is a ghost monster living inside a mummy. He's upset because we apparently broke his heart when we didn't talk to him in the ruins. So he attacks us with magic attacks. For this fight, we need to get his own magic attacks to hit him. In general, we already know his movement patterns, so this is pretty easy. We just guide the attacks to where he'll be and go fast. Finally, once we do enough damage though, he starts using robots. These use missiles that follow us around for a while until they finally go in a single direction. Fun fact here, you don't actually have to hit the Mad Dummy with any of these robot attacks. He has a set amount of attacks until he finally gives up on them and uses a knife, which also fails. He then decides to trap us forever, but best boy Naps the Blue comes in and cries on him to make him leave. He's just so precious. Now, not much else happens for a little bit. We do stop at this shop so we can buy cloudy glasses, but other than that, it's just walking through some more areas into our next encounter with Undyne, who finally gets the chance to impale us until Monster Kid jumps in front of her attack and she pulls him away. Then Monster Kid realizes that we're a human and asks us to say something mean so he can hate us. He reluctantly takes our insult and then trips off a bridge. We kinda just leave him there because I mean Undyne can get him anyway, so it's not my problem. And this finally leads us onto the Undyne boss fight, which has one of the best songs in the game. In this fight, instead of dodging attacks, we need to cover ourselves from them. Then after sparing her a few times, she puts our heart back to normal and we can flee. This happens 2 more times, each one becoming a bit harder to do, but I've practiced it way too much, so I'm fine. The one thing that does always give me trouble though is the third phase, since she uses these arrows which hit you in the opposite direction they come in. I've actually lost a few runs to this before, but at the end of the fight, we want to get hit enough so that we have exactly 1 HP for a reason you'll see in a minute. This is actually kind of scary because it's really easy to mess up, but we made it through and can continue fleeing from her. After this, we make it to Hotland and Undyne passes out. It's crucial for the True Pacifist ending that we give her a cup of water so she realizes that maybe we aren't so bad after all and we can enter Alphys's lab. Now, as you can see, Alphys is kind of obsessed with us. I mean, she watches our every move, so that's only kind of scary. We catch her off guard though because we show up sooner than she expected, but as we're talking, Mettaton, the entertainment robot, shows up. This guy loves to make TV shows and puts us right into one. We do a quiz show but answer the first question wrong. Because he doesn't want to actually kill us and we have 1 HP, this immediately moves the show on to the last question. In this one, Alphys geeks out about her favorite anime, and Mettaton is upset that she's helping us cheat, so he asks who Alphys has a crush on. We can answer Undyne and move on after embarrassing her on live TV. Then Alphys gives us her phone number and a new texting ability for our phone so she can talk with us more easily. This is when everyone's favorite part of the game comes up, where Alphys will write a tweet and we have to spam past it. It always stops us, so that's fun, but you end up learning when they happen, so it isn't too much of a problem. Now as we're going on, we need to pick up the burnt pan as a new weapon. Obviously, we don't want to fight anyone in True Pacifist, but there will be a forced fight later, so this is really important to get. Then we encounter this puzzle, which usually takes a bit of time to complete. Basically, you can't move while the blue lights touch you and need to move while touching the orange lights. We completely ignore this rule though and immediately get attacked by a laser. This freaks out Alphys, who again is intentionally making sure we don't die, so she shuts off the puzzle altogether since we're at 1 HP. But we have some more puzzles to do right after, and it's 2 of these shooter puzzles. We need to hit the other triangle thing within 2 shots after moving around all the blocks, but these are the simplest ones in the game and we can progress easily. Now it's finally time for another one of Mettaton's amazing game shows, Cooking with a Killer Robot. Mettaton asks us to get him eggs, milk, and flour, but he's still missing one ingredient, a human soul. But Alphys asks if he has any vegan options, so he tells us to go get the MTT brand always convenient human soul flavor substitute. Of course, Mettaton can't make this easy for us though, so he throws eggs and flour at us, and it's a fun minigame but barely affects your time if you mess up, so it's an easy win. Now we have some more long walking sections where we walk to the right, up an elevator, and to the left, but we make sure to stop at this section and pick up the stained apron. Then we have a puzzle where we press some buttons, and Alphys messes it up, but it works anyways, and this puzzle where we have to jump through this area in the right order, pretty simple stuff. But immediately after that, we get stopped by the Royal Guards, so we start their fight by cleaning O2's armor. The more we hit the green area during the dodging phase, the better it works. This makes him feel way too hot, so he takes off his armor, which makes O1 nervous. So we whisper to O1 and tell him that he should tell O2 his true feelings. And that leads to a beautiful scene where they decide to get ice cream together. But it's time for some more killer death robot game shows. In this one, Mettaton gives us 6 bombs to defuse. Now this part is pretty easy. We just take the most efficient path and have to press the defuse button when the bomb goes into this triangle. My personal favorite bomb is the extremely agile glass of water. But that's another one down, and it's time for some more puzzles after walking and going up another elevator. Here we have 2 more of the shooter puzzles that we did earlier. The first one is pretty simple, and it's just left, up, left, left, right. Then the second one looks really difficult, but it's literally just left, right. And now it's finally time to meet Muffet the spider boss. Now this part is kind of sad because I love Muffet's fight and song, but the fastest way to beat her is to eat the spider donut that we got at the beginning of the run and immediately spare her. Then right after that, we want to go back and save our game for a cool strat. Here we have a section where you usually need to listen to an entire song by Mettaton. However, if you quit out of the game in the middle of the song and reload it, he gives you the option to skip the song completely. Kinda sad because it's very beautiful, but we need to go fast. Now immediately after the song, Mettaton uses a trapdoor and it's time to do the color puzzle. We skipped this with Sans and Papyrus earlier in the game, but this time the puzzle looks impossible, except it isn't. As long as you know the order for it, you can actually complete the puzzle and save a good amount of time. Even Alphys is confused on how you completed it, so it's just kind of funny all around. Then we get into a fight with Mettaton, but it turns out not to be a fight because we kind of just shoot him a single time with our heart, and he's definitely not pretending to be beat here. Now it's finally time for the next section of the game. Here, Alphys wants to protect us like she did in the past, but is unable to and makes mistakes on telling us where to go. Good thing I know exactly where to go. So first we go into the left room and meet a magic, but best item stick comes into play again, and it immediately gives us a spare condition like it did with the dogs. Then we walk through some more areas and dodge some lasers, which Alphys definitely has under control before we get to our next shooter puzzle, and this is the most complicated one. Here we want to do left, down, left, up, right, up, right. And we can get to the true Mettaton battle. Mettaton is finally done listening to Alphys and wants to fight us for real because he wants to go and be a star on Earth. Now it starts out easy, but after a few spares, Alphys tells us to turn him around and touch the button on his back, which makes him completely gorgeous. At this point, we need to get up to 12,000 ratings. Now there are a few different ways we can do this, but the best one is with fashion. Every time we put on a different piece of clothing, we will get 1,500 ratings. And we collected 4 different outfit changes throughout the run, so we can get a lot of them really fast. So we put on 3 of our outfits, and then boast to steadily raise ratings as long as we don't get hit, before putting on our last outfit change after that. It's now time for the essay on why I love Mettaton. Now most people think the best answer is legs because, I mean, just look at him, but actually if you put hot, fine, NTI cute, you get a bit more ratings. This is because the game thinks you're writing hot, fine, enticing cute, so it's just a funny little trick. Then we can boast 2 more times and end with 12,000 ratings, which is actually the fastest I've ever completed the fight. Now Mettaton decides to take viewer calls and realizes that a lot of people would miss him if he left the underground. He decides it's not worth it to leave all his fans and powers down. Oh, also I was supposed to put the stained apron on last so it would be my current armor, but messed that up, so we put it on now. Anyways, it's finally time to face Asgore, the leader of the underground. But before that, Alphys warns us that to return home, we can't just talk it out with Asgore, we would need to kill him and use his soul. And then we get a long exposition dump that basically explains that a long time ago, a human fell into the ruins and was injured. Asriel, the king's son, heard the call for help and came to him. Then the family of goats treated him like one of their own, but one day the human died, so Asriel absorbed his soul and carried it across the barrier so he could bring the human to his favorite flowers. Some villagers saw him though and literally killed him, so the king decided to end the monster's suffering and tell the underground that any human that falls down must die because with enough souls everyone can cross the barrier. We're the last one he needs, so that kinda makes this next encounter awkward. But before that, we get another visit by everyone's favorite skeleton, Sans. We actually do this strat again where we save before Sans, and as soon as he starts talking, we quit out and reload. This makes it so we can skip through his text instead of slowly reading it. Sans commends us for not killing anyone, but tells us that now we have to decide what to do against Asgore. So we meet Asgore, save, and it's time for a friendly trip to the dentist. In this fight, immediately Asgore destroys the mercy button, so you can't do anything but fight. This is why we got the burnt pan earlier in the run. And speaking of earlier in the run, we finally eat Goat Mom's pie, which lowers Asgore's attack and defense. Now this fight isn't too bad after practicing it. Asgore isn't able to fully kill you if you have any more than 1 HP. So since we're using the stained apron, which gives us a free HP every other turn, it's hard to die in. Now the name of the game for this fight to go fast is get 4 perfect hits with the burnt pan. If you can do this, it doubles the damage that the weapon would usually do if you just barely miss one of the hits. The sad part is this is really difficult. 4 perfect hits in a row is one of the hardest parts of the speedrun in general for me, and while I can get 3 fairly consistently, 4 is hit or miss. So we ended up only getting 1 at the very end of the fight, but it was still pretty fast in general. Then the game gives us the option to either kill or spare Asgore, but this option doesn't matter. No matter what we do, Flowey will come in and take the kill in the end, so we choose to kill him to read less dialogue. Trust me, it's still a pacifist run. Anyways, Flowey then crashes our game, so we reopen it to find this. We need to do the Flowey boss fight where this dude looks legitimately terrifying. Like we honestly shouldn't even be fighting him, we need to get him some help. Now the thing about this fight is it's an auto-scroller. There's not really any way to speed it up substantially, and if you know what you're doing, it's pretty much impossible to die in. All we need to do is dodge a fair amount of attacks and make it into the individual soul phases. Each one of the human souls that the monsters have gathered has its own attacks. These are always fairly simple with a little bit of RNG for if some of them show up on the left side or the right side of the screen. Once you press the act button though, the attacks turn into healing so you can survive the next phases. Once we finish all the soul phases, the souls start rooting for us so we have more determination. Now Flowey's defense is dropped to 0. Here we want to stay on the fight button as much as possible, even if it causes us to get hit. It's really hard to die in this area because there's healing that drops every few seconds, so we're fine. Eventually this whittles down Flowey's health and we win. Just kidding, he has access to our save files and legitimately troll faces us. So he kills us a few times, mocks us, and chews on our heart, but we get saved. The human souls work together and finally stop Flowey. Now we get the option to either save or kill Flowey, and since it's a pacifist run, we kill him. Then immediately when he starts talking, we quit out and reload so we can skip this dialogue. So confession time. We definitely killed Asgore, completely uncalled for and kinda messed up. We also killed Flowey, so yes, this shouldn't be a pacifist run. However, since we reload our old save file to before we even fought Asgore, that effectively never happened. In this world, we never killed them at all, or at least I like to tell myself that. Anyways, it's time for some dating. First off, we need to become better friends with Undyne to get the True Pacifist ending. So we go all the way back to Waterfall and meet up with Papyrus at her house. We get invited in, but unfortunately, Papyrus really needs to use the bathroom, so it's just the 2 of us. Now Undyne has some violent tendencies, but overall, it's a great date. She makes some tea, destroys some drinks, crushes some fruit, and stirs some pasta. We also turn the heat up on her stove until her whole house burns down. Oops. At this point, she decides that maybe we were meant to be enemies and fights us. However, we can only muster the strength to damage her for a single HP, so she gives up. Yeah, successful date. Now Undyne asks us to deliver a love letter to Alphys so they can finally admit that they love each other, and that's just what we do. We slide the letter under Alphys' door, and she gets ready for the date immediately. But since we're at the door, she assumes that we were the ones who wrote the letter instead of Undyne. This leads us to the most awkward date of all time, where we go to the dump because we need a more romantic atmosphere. Here, Undyne finds us in Alphys Heights. We tell Undyne that we delivered the letter, and Alphys admits to us privately that she likes Undyne, but is afraid to tell her. Thankfully, Undyne overhears Alphys exclaiming her love, and throws her in the trash can. Undyne explains that she likes Alphys too, but Alphys needs to do some training to truly get comfortable with herself, so she gets the man himself, Papyrus, to help out. Oh yeah, we also tell Undyne that anime is real, so hopefully that won't have any real world repercussions once we leave the underground. But the major tech smashing part is finally complete, so my hands can get a rest, and it's time to go back to Alphys' lab so we can go into the True Lab. In the True Lab, we get to learn all about Alphys' experiments with determination, souls, and golden flowers. Sound like anyone? But we don't read any of that because I'm trying to get a sub 2 hour time. Now here we need to spare several amalgamites, which are some of Alphys' failed experiments. First, we head to the left and turn on the sink 3 times. That spawns 3 memory heads, which just require doing sell and then refuse. This battle gives us a red key, which we can use on the room above it. So now we go back to the right for a while and pick up the next key on this bed before going upwards and to the right. Here we need to turn on these fans, but that spawns the next dog amalgamate. Yeah, you already know what we're doing for this good boy. Why is the stick so good? After this, we can travel to the left until we enter this door and see whatever this is. Definitely not creepy at all. But as soon as we make it to the bathtub, we get another key, so it works out. Then there's some more traveling to the left and using another key for the yellow switch before we need to fight the fake save point amalgamate, Lemon Bread. For this guy, we need to hum, flex, and then unhug. Now it's time for my favorite amalgamate, Snowdrake's mother. We need to talk to the fridge once and move to spawn her. Then we need to just joke with her 3 times to win. She doesn't really fight back either, but we love her. Then it's another key time in the room above, and we just have one more to insert. This time we can go all the way back to the bedroom and go past this mirror where we fight Reaper Bird. It can be defeated by picking on it, mystifying it, and praying. Now it's just a quick last blue key insert, and it's time to finish True Lab. We go all the way back to the beginning where this door can now open. We finally reach the elevator's power room and turn it on, but the amalgamates want to play some more. Unfortunately, Alphys stops them though, and we get some more lore about how bad she feels before she leaves us alone. Now all that's left is traveling back through the elevator and meeting up with Asgore again. So we start the Asgore fight, but this time Toro comes in to rescue us just in time. Then we see that all of our friends came as well. Everyone wants to get through this together, but of course, who called everyone here? Yep, you guessed it, it was Flowey. So Flowey tries to prove how much stronger he is than us, but at the last second we get saved by our friends. Then all the other people we met throughout our journey come in to help us as well. This is exactly what Flowey wanted. So it turns out this entire time Flowey was Asriel. Who would have guessed? Now it's time for my favorite song in the game and a pretty fun fight. In this fight, it doesn't truly start until Asriel goes into his rainbow phase, so we can just kinda wait here for a while. Then after that, he'll have a bunch of different attacks that aren't too bad to dodge. At this point, all that's important is surviving and getting through all of Asriel's dialogue. Eventually, Asriel uses this attack which puts us at 1 HP and becomes wide. Then all we can do is struggle and try to dodge attacks. We die on purpose for the first one because I want to be at full HP, and then try our best not to die anymore. I mean, I do one more time, but it's not too much of a time loss. Finally though, we realize that we need to reach out to our friends and save them from their trance. So we go through each one of them and use a couple of act options. But after saving all of them, we realize that there's still one left person to save, Asriel. We get a nice cutscene of the past and keep trying to save Asriel. He starts attacking us, but similar to Toriel, once we get to low HP, he stops damaging us. He explains that we're the only person in the world that truly gets him and he doesn't want to let us go. But we don't give up, even when he puts us at 0.00000000001 health, and finally, it's done. Now at this point, Asriel goes back into his child form and we get to talk with him. and forgive him for all his actions. Then Asriel opens up the barrier for us and leaves. We also get the choice to either hug the goat or not do it. Now I usually let my Twitch chat say what they want, but warn them that if we hug the goat, we might not be able to get the sub 2 hour time that we're so close to. They wanted it though, so we lost an additional 22 seconds. We wake up to find all of our friends around us and everyone is safe. All that's left is to exit the underground and have one last scene. Here they asked me if I could become their ambassador for the humans, and I agree. And then we also decide to live with Toriel because I don't even know if I have parents. As soon as we end Toriel's last line, we end time and there we go. 1:59:41. That just barely puts us at 50th place for the True Pacifist glitchless leaderboard, and I'm proud of it. Make sure you subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you for the next one.